Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Mood616 back at you with another. Nah, I'm just kidding, it's JP. But the reason I say that is because Mood616, anybody who's followed him for a long time knows that he used to do these videos called 10 and 10. Basically, 10 and 10 Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. I believe he got to 15 or so before he stopped doing them. And that's it, he stopped doing them. And I used to love these videos, they were my favorite things that he did, and he doesn't do them anymore. And I always wanted him to bring, make the 10 and 10 videos make a comeback, but since he won't do them, I decided I'm going to do them. I'm going to rip off his video series, and I'm going to do my very first one right now. It's going to be called 10 and 10 Volume 1. Very similar title to his. Um, but anyway, no. Like, they're very cool, and I just kind of wanted to try one out. So sorry for ripping you off, Moods, but yeah. And he usually would go over the time. Basically, you try to talk about 10 films in 10 minutes, uh, and he would normally go over the time limit, and I probably will too, especially in this one, considering the minute-long intro that's already taking place. So with that said, I'm going to jump into the first film, and it is Vlog. Now, Vlog is one that I remember Danny reviewing on our very first collaboration channel. I believe it was the first week, too. Um, this one, it has an interesting concept. This girl is basically recording these vlogs, and it has to do with, like, a killer and stuff, which I thought was cool, and it worked kind of well, but it feels like they didn't really integrate the whole vlogging thing to the best of what they could have. um, and it had its moments, but overall, kind of a generic, boring story. I wasn't too surprised with the ending or anything, but it does have its moments, and I would rate this film probably a 5.5 out of 10, so a little bit above average. Second, we have Late Fee, and this one is actually one that Moods sent me, and actually another Steve just reviewed this one on Body Bags also. So yeah, Late Fee. I thought that the main story, the kind of wraparound story thing, was very cool. This couple goes and rents a video at a video store, a actual video store, and that was just neat to see. Everybody in the video store. It's set on Halloween. It was just a really cool vibe, and it really, you know, gave that classic video store feel, and they're talking about the movies and stuff like that. Then there's these two like segments, which is the movies that they rented. I don't really care for either of them, and that's what really brought this film down for me. The first one was okay, the second one was just bad. And it just wasn't good filmmaking, and very bad writing. The everything besides those two segments though was really cool. Unfortunately, I would only rate this film probably about a 4.5 out of 10. The stuff that it does well, it does pretty well, but the stuff that it does bad, it does really bad. Next up, we have a film called Virus, and this one is a Jamie Lee Curtis film, and you know what? It was. It's a film that feels like it takes itself way too serious for the subject matter. I mean, we're dealing with a virus that takes over, a ship and turns all kind of machines into robots, and builds itself, becomes self-aware, and starts killing people on board. You know, the villain guy was way too villainy and corrupt, and just I don't know. It was alright. There wasn't. Um, it just took itself too serious. Comes off really cheesy. But at the same time, I enjoyed certain things about it. I like films set on weird stuff, like a ship and stuff. I'd probably rate this film a 6 out of 10. Um, Next up, we have a really cool one, and this is Splinter. And sorry for the glare, but it's the light on the camera. Splinter was really fucking badass, dude. First of all, I love horror films set in one location, and this one's, primarily set in a gas station, which instantly I like that. You have this weird mold like, parasite type thing that's basically takes over the host and controls it and just makes it, disgusting, rotty, and just, it's all rotting and just gory. It's just cool, man. And these people are basically a interesting group of characters who, how they came together was cool. Stuck in a gas station with this thing outside, and um, it kind of has these like spines on it, these splinters, if you will, and it's just it's really cool. I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to this one. I really really did enjoy this one. I would rate it a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely a fun watch, and you get this one pretty cheap, so definitely check it out if you haven't. I believe Danny actually reviewed that one too. And then next up we have Hatchet 3. Now, Hatchet 3 was one of those films that I heard bad things about. I heard everybody saying, "Oh, it's just disappointing." And I remember people saying that about Hatchet 2, and now it seems like more people like Hatchet 2 than people that like Hatchet 1. I really liked Hatchet 3. I thought it totally impressed me. I was not expecting. I was, went in with low expectations from what everybody was saying. I was kind of bummed out about it, and I ended up really enjoying it. I don't know what people were really expecting. I went in, wanting to see a Hatchet film, and that's pretty much what I seen. It was a good sequel. It picks up right after the second film, much like the second one did to the first one, and it felt very sequelish, which I like. It felt like it was in the same world. It felt like it was in the same, universe, the same day. You have, Danielle Harris doing a better job than she did in the second one. And you have Victor Crowley killing motherfuckers. And, it fills you in on more of the story. And Carolyn Williams and Zach Galligan. Carolyn Williams was great in this movie. That was probably the highlight of it for me. It took me back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. She felt like she was a similar character. I really enjoyed her. Hatchet 3 was awesome. I wish people would give it a little bit more props because I liked it a lot. Oh, and I would rate Hatchet 3 an 8 out of 10. I liked it that much. Next up, we have Grindhouse. And Grindhouse, I'm going to talk about both of them as one film, or as, each film, I guess, because, they're kind of two films and stuff. But, first up, Planet Terror. Planet Terror was awesome, just over the top, craziness, zombies, blood, guts, and gore, machine gun legs and stuff. Just, adrenaline filled, fast paced zombie film. And then you have Death Proof, which is kind of a slower burn, a lot of dialogue heavy, and action towards the later parts of the film, which works. You have your fast paced thing first, and then you have your slow burn second. And if you're watching it in the Grindhouse format, that works perfect because it just really feels, especially Death Proof, really feels like that 70s uh, metal on metal car films, which people are huge fans of. Yeah, so I really liked it as a whole, but Planet Terror is probably definitely the more entertaining film. I wouldn't necessarily say the better film, but it's more entertaining. Just absolute craziness and gross pussy gore, which I really enjoyed. I'm just so bummed I didn't get to see this in the theater, man. That would have been quite an experience, and you have to watch them back to back like this. It's the best way to watch them. I had a blast watching these two. I finally got to it. I've had this set for so long now, and I would rate the as a whole, I would rate it 9 out of 10 for sure. It's that fun. Um, Next up, we have Evolver, and this one is a film I remember seeing on Sci-Fi in the '90s. The Sci-Fi Channel, and it was just it was something I remembered for the longest time. I finally grabbed it on DVD, and it is cheesy as hell. It is 90s-ness overload. There's so much 90s-ness going on in here. Basically, this kid gets a super smart robot that it's basically a game. It's like laser tag, and it's supposed to evolve and go to the next level after you beat it. But this thing takes on a life of its own. It's was designed to be a military weapon, and only a '90s film can have a plot like that. It was designed to be a weapon, and then the corrupt designer turns it into a toy, but can't let go of the fact that he originally designed it as a military weapon. And of course, you have the '90s typical teenage kid whose parents are divorced, going through divorce, which is such a staple of the '90s time, where it just seemed like everybody's parents were getting divorced, and they always dealt with it in TV shows and movies. But yeah, this, I mean, I was actually surprised at the level of violence in this, because I thought it would have been PG-13 in my head. I remembered it as that, but it's rated R, and there's some actual kills in here, which I didn't remember from when I watched it as a kid. I believe this came out in 1995, and it is, a perfect example of a 90s horror film. It just, or, not even a horror film. It just feels 90s. Anyway, Evolver, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I had a fun time watching that, revisiting it, and I recommend picking it up. If you get it for under $5, it's definitely worth it. And next up, we have The Thompsons. The Thompsons is a sequel to The Hamiltons. I did enjoy this one a little bit. I was thinking it was going to be worse than it was, and it was just, it was. I wouldn't even really say I enjoyed it. I just survived it, I guess. It wasn't. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great. It was very average. It was just an average horror film. What I liked so much about The Hamiltons, and I barely remember it because it's been years and years since I've seen it, but it just felt like an odd, strange, weird family who just happened to be vampires, and that was what was cool about it. And the like strangeness of the family is no longer in this one, and it just feels like a run of the mill vampire film. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's very average, 5 out of 10. Not too great, but not too. Oh, and that quote, Twilight meets Tarantino, that probably is the worst quote I've ever seen on a horror film. It's stupid. And then finally, our last film, because I counted The Grindhouse as two films, is Critters 3. Critters 3 is Critters. I don't know if it's set in New York or where, but it has that kind of grimy feeling for the apartment complex. It's set in somewhere in the city, and they don't show a lot of exterior, but the interiors are kind of gross, and I like that. I like this city where it's just nasty. Um, and yeah, man, Critters 3. It's a great one for the kids. It's kind of slapsticky, not too great, but it's Critters 3. It's about what you would expect. I'd rate it a 6 out of 10. It's fun, and it's a good one for little kids and stuff. And it's not bad for a third film in the series, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio's film debut, which is pretty crazy. Anyway, I went over 10 minutes. I'm at like 12:30 right now, and that pisses me off because I really wanted to do this in 10 minutes. So, yeah, I apologize for that, and I guess this was harder than it looked. Yeah, and check out Moods' channel where you can find the true origins of the 10 and 10, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.